YouTube, if you could mute yourself wherever you are, that would be grateful, except when you're due to speak. As usual, please indicate your participation, and I'll do my best, along with James, to make sure that everybody is heard okay, and everybody can make their points. Please stick to the time limits. I'll allow the proposer and seconder a little bit more time than the speakers to the proposer and speaker. Please pick your 2 to 3 minutes when you speak. Anyway, thank you. Apologies, please. Who's got those? Is it? Well, I'll read the ones I've got. Councillor Madonna and Graham Elliott. Are there any other apologies? Right, lovely. Thank you very much.
Chair, can you hear me?
Who is that?
Chair, can you hear?
Oh, it's David. David, are you on the 771 number? Yeah.
I am.
Right.
Hello.
I cannot see you.
No, you can't see me because I'm on the phone.
Right. Okay. So, but will you be able to press participate?
I will be able to participate because I can speak.
Right. Okay. Can you put
and
yourself
I can
on?
hear.
Right. Okay. So, but can you use the participation buttons and stuff?
No, I can't do that. All I can do is speak. But
right. Well, I'll remember it's you. Okay. Right. Oh, that.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Public participation, James.
Chairman, we haven't received any representations to be reported.
Okay. Thank you. I have some interest notice. Councillor Hill.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Evening all. Obviously, due to my work for Derbyshire Fire Rescue, I've got a financial interest in this agenda. So I won't be able to be involved in the debate. I will not be able to vote. So fortunately, I will be leaving the meeting now, but I will be watching it on YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Atkin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to declare a personal interest in the paper as I'm a member of the Peak District National Park. It won't preclude me from the debate or the vote. Thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, similar to Councillor Atkin, I'm a member of the Peak District National Park. I'm also chair of the Moors for the Future Partnership, who are obviously heavily involved in moorland restoration and wildfire mitigation.
And Councillor Finesse.
Just unmuting. Yes, similarly, I am a member of the Peak District National Park Board, so have a personal, non-pecuniary interest.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all for clarity. Is there anybody else? Nobody else has been noted. No. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Well, so ladies and gentlemen, we move on to our proposal of a notice of motion that has been submitted by the 5 councillors in accordance with Rule of Procedure 7. And I'd like Councillor Buttle to introduce his motion, please. Councillor Buttle.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think there's a gap in information between the officer report and our proposal. I'm hoping I can fill in that gap with some relevant information. The proposal is a slightly modified version of the motion passed by Oldham Council in response to the fire on Saddleworth Moor. And I'm hoping that we will not see this as a political debate. Climate emergencies don't really care how we vote in normal life. Anyway, a hectare of local woodland stores 50 to 100 tonnes of carbon. A hectare of thriving Amazon rainforest, 150 tonnes. A hectare of our moorland can be anything from 500 to 5,000 tonnes. And it will lay down another 2 or 3 tonnes every year. For context, your washing machine washer dryer is 1 or 2 kilos per load. Right, so Derbyshire Dales has some responsibility for a few small parts of the areas at greatest risk. Peatlands cover about 1% of the global land area. They sequester 370 million tonnes of carbon each year. The mosses each year add 1 millimetre or so to the depth of the peat. They lock in thousands of tonnes of carbon each year locally. Unfortunately, damaged moorland can erode very fast, up to 1 metre a year. And a lot of that is lost as carbon to the atmosphere. That's thousands of years of work by millions of tiny mosses lost in moments, sometimes for the price of a couple of sausages. So we really need to look after it, and releasing that carbon is a serious mistake. What to do? Along with a much needed multi-agency advertising blitz, we could extend our existing PSPOs to cover barbecues on open land, access from about half a dozen car parks around Hathersage and Kerber. I suspect the officers didn't actually check how much moorland we cover. It's not very much. Derbyshire Dales covers very little moorland. And I can see this PSPO as a nudge as much as anything, something to publicise, a way to highlight the danger of wildfire. Policing will probably be something mainly driven by social acceptability, and that does depend on our laws. Enforcement may be hugely stretched, but can we afford to lose several hectares of stannage to wildfire? Then there's the living environment, ground nesting birds, small but recovering populations of various birds, mammals and amphibians. The effects of a wildfire don't really bear thinking about. So climate change is not going away. It's going to get fiercer and fiercer every year. And the Peak District's in a wonderful place, bringing people from far and wide. They're here enjoying the spectacular environment and our fantastic facilities all year round. We benefit enormously from their patronage. We are winners all round at the moment, but I dread to think how things might change if we had a catastrophic fire. The Peak District has a lot of visitors, well-meaning visitors, and a surprisingly large percentage of those visitors have a portable barbecue with them. I've been doing a bit of research. Of 500 fires on moorland nationally, 498 were caused by people with a barbecue. The other two were undetermined. The chances are they were started accidentally by someone with poor knowledge of the risks. Almost all of those fires were a short distance from a car park. Carrying a picnic any distance is hard work. We don't have to police large areas, that'd be impossible, but carefully targeted and designed signage will probably be very effective. As it is, we already have barbecue PSPOs for 33 public spaces within the Dales, but they range no further north than April, and they are up for review in 2021. But I think we should move faster than that. Given that the vast majority of moorland fires are started within a few hundred metres of a car park, and we don't cover much moorland, the list of relevant car parks requiring signage will not be huge. Go away. Sorry, the cat's arguing. Right, so there's 6 or 7 car parks to signpost, and one of them's pretty much a lay-by. They are the lay-by off the Strines Road where the A57 comes down at the back of Stanage, 3 main car parks for Stanage, car park at Kerberback, car park at Robin Hood, which covers Burgess and Chatsworth edges.
Can I just interrupt just a second, Councillor Bartle? Technically, you have 3 minutes as a proposer in this motion, so I'll let you finish. But if you could try and
I'll move it along quickly. I'm sorry. James told me I had 7.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Okay, 7. Okay.
So I've actually read this out, and it took me 7 minutes or something.
I beg your pardon. Okay.
With the excitement, I'd be even quicker. Right. Anyway, so a few car parks around Stanage. Stanton Moor car park. Yes, that's got problems as well, right, with fire around there. So a few car parks around Stanage, Kerber and Stanton. 3 or 4 small patches of moorland to be added to the list of 31 village greens and parks that we already have PSPO orders against. And we've already banned having a barbecue at Bakewell's recreation ground. So I think that as Stanage is more vulnerable and more urgently needed protection, then we could do it. Okay, so peatland restoration projects are one of the most financially effective ways to sequester carbon and abate climate change. Derbyshire Dales has recognised the climate emergency. The Moors for the Future Partnership have a detailed analysis created in partnership with many other agencies of the trends, areas at risk, specific knowledge that will help us act effectively. There have been studies done which cover every incidence of fire, the location, the cause. We can easily check our choices against their analysis. Andrew McCloy, chair of the Peak District National Park Authority, has informally telegraphed his support for what that's worth. So hopefully the definition of the land covered and access to lists of landowners and user groups should be straightforward. I've only got another couple of paragraphs. Which brings us to our council's approach to dealing with the dangers of wildfire. We're not alone. Several councils have acted with varying degrees of speed and cost effectiveness. If the report could expand on that progress, the different methods, I'm sure I'd be happy to learn by others' experience. Personally, I'm keen on a multi-agency approach with teeth, but what works best is, of course, what we should do. Our path must be one that stretches beyond the Derbyshire Dales District Council press office releasing some nicely designed tweets, though they are always very nicely designed. Each year we have weather that gets yet more frightening. The temperatures climb year on year. It's not the end of days, but unless we collectively act, we are facing serious problems that we cannot solve. And while no one can make much difference individually, acting together, we can make a positive difference. And what we can do in this case is request a consultation, an officer's report, moves towards more areas covered by our PSPO, write our roadmap to safer moors, if you like. And once we've got that roadmap, we should take it seriously. We've got the powers to create a barbecue PSPO. I think we should. So thank you for listening. And I'm sorry I ran over what you expected.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Battle, is the motion as printed on our papers on pages on the second page and the third page? Is that what you're proposing? Or you've got an
Absolutely, yes. Did I not mention that?
Right. So you're proposing that on block.
Supporting that, yes.
Supporting that on block. Okay.
Yes, as it is. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's all that. Now, I think I have Councillor O'Brien as the seconder. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair, I'm pleased to second the proposal. I'll reserve my statement till later on in the debate.
Okay, all right, that's absolutely fine. Right, so now we can go to the debate, please, ladies and gentlemen. Who'd like to start? I'm looking for my participation thing. Councillor Mike Ratcliffe.
Right, thank you, Chair. I'll start us off. What an excellent speech that was. One of the best I've heard for quite a while, I have to say. Congratulations, Neil. I think you've set it out completely and illustrated exactly why we should all be supporting this. But thank you too to the officer, of course, who took the time to compile the research and provided the information for us also to digest. It can't be easy, obviously, to be prefaced, shall I say, with a very reasonable motion like this, but know that somewhere at the back of this it is a majority party view that might sway an opposite view. And I really do hope that won't prevail this evening. I was very taken with your words, Neil, that in fact we should lay party allegiance and discipline aside and have something of a free vote on this. I do so agree with you about the increasing summer temperatures that climate change is provoking, and I think we've experienced this this year, and indeed some outbreaks of fires in the moorlands too. And I would have thought that all fair-minded councillors, and particularly those in Peak Park wards, would welcome these proposals. Now, just referring to the briefing papers and report that we are considering, much is made of the amount of time and resources needed to bring about such a PSPO. I have to say that I don't remember such obstacles being placed in the way of dog control and dog fouling measures when we introduced those into the urban areas. I have some questions, Chair, if I may. I'm not quite sure which officer.
Well, the points of clarification, to right. Ash and Keith Poss.
Yeah. I'll just run through some of them, if I may, because I think they are important for clarification and for in terms of persuasion and approving the motion, as it were. I mean, given the inclusion of the Peak National Park that's noted in your recommendations, motions here, Neil, what feedback have we had from them, and indeed offers of support? There are suggestions of cost. I'd like to know, just as a comparison, how much we spend annually, for instance, on monitoring and enforcing the existing protection orders, such as those that I mentioned, like dog control and fouling. I note too, again, that in authorities where such orders do exist, and you mentioned those, there are no additional budgetary costs envisaged. Why then do we think, and it has been suggested, that 100,000 a year might be needed? The success of protection orders should not be judged solely on the number of enforcements issued. As you quite rightly say, the deterrent factor is of significance here, and you've set out where those signs might be placed. Evidence for the implementation of this, of course, is part of the consultation exercise, and given the intention to review current PSPOs and consider new ones, which I note in the report, in November 2021, it would seem to me to be very reasonable to adopt these recommendations and begin that process early with what I think is a very laudable set of proposals and a very laudable intention too.
Okay, shall I get Ash to answer those? I think it's either Ash or Keith who's got the answers.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe, for your questions. I'm going to hand over to Keith at some point in this because he's been involved in the discussions with the Peak District National Park, or representatives from, regarding this situation and related ones. But if I can just give some feedback on your questions, how much do we spend on current enforcement, if I've understood your questions correctly? We have 2 employees at the moment who, I'm not going to call them enforcement officers because that's not the title. We have 2 officers who undertake other duties and are trained to deliver the enforcement. Enforcement is a very small part of their job. They're pest control officers. So as some members will know, they're already very busy throughout the day dealing with pest control issues. And that has been my overall concern throughout this, and I've relayed that to the members that I've spoken to. My concern is the ability to enforce these and the concern about setting an expectation that we can enforce a PSPO. So in terms of how much do we spend, it's 2 people, but it's not the primary function of their role. The £100,000 figure came through myself and a colleague looking at alternative options for enforcing PSPOs and issuing fixed penalty notices, not necessarily just for barbecues or fires, but other enforcement. And there are companies out there who look to do the enforcement duties, and they take the fines that have been issued and with the aim of delivering a zero cost service, if that makes sense. So they weigh up the possibility or the expected number of fixed penalty notices issued and weigh that off against the charge to the authority. In our instance, one of the companies I approached came back to me and said it wouldn't be worth the while, so they wouldn't be interested in looking at a contract should we go out to the market. And one of the bigger companies who came back to us said that actually it's going to cost you about £100,000 in time to cover the district. It's a large geographic space, as we know, and look to try and cover that effectively would be a cost of £100,000. And that's taken into account that the money that they thought they would receive from fixed penalty notices. So that's where that figure has come from. So it's just an alternative method of issuing fixed penalty notices. In terms of your earlier question about why the difference in time, the current PSPOs that are in place relate to district council land. What we believe we're talking about at this stage is land that is not necessarily the district councils. So it would mean engaging with other partners. So just simply having those conversations, it might be private landowners, it may not be, but that all extends the period of consultation because there's research to be done in advance of that. Simply isn't district council land. Going back to your original question of Peak District National Park and what feedback has been given, I'll pass over to Keith, but before I do mute, I will say that I've spoken to the Peak District National Park Chief Executive, and she's in a very similar position to what we are, in the sense of struggling to enforce, the capacity to enforce. It would be a problem for them as it is for us. But Keith will be able to give you some of the detail because he's been speaking to one of their representatives for a few months.
Okay, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. I'll just wait for Keith. Really, I'm very sorry. In the excitement of getting this meeting started, I forgot to do the roll call so that we all know that we can all hear everything. And I've got 2 David Hugheses, and I just want to make sure that we don't have that for clarity, please. So I'd like to ask Jason just to do the roll call. I'm sorry to interrupt there now, but if we could do the roll call, please, Jason. If you'll get ready to unmute when it's your turn alphabetically. Jason.
He's not unmuted.
All right, so here we go. Sorry to spring this on you, Jason, but right, there we go. Jason Spencer, anyone who's come to join the team in James's office. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Allison.
Here.
Councillor Archer.
Here.
Councillor Atkin.
Here.
Councillor Bright.
Here.
Councillor Buckler.
Here.
Councillor Bull.
Here.
Councillor Martin Burford.
Here.
Councillor Sue Burford.
Here.
Councillor Buttle.
Here.
Councillor Chapman.
Here.
Councillor Cruz.
Here.
Councillor Donnelly.
Here.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
Here.
Councillor Flitter, no? I've not seen Councillor Flitter.
No, oh, he was away yesterday, so
right.
Not here. Okay.
Councillor Froggatt.
Here.
Councillor Finesse.
Here.
Councillor Gamble.
Here.
Councillor Hobson.
Here.
Councillor Hughes.
Here in one person.
Good.
Councillor Lees.
Here.
Councillor Tony Morley.
Here.
Councillor Michelle Morley.
Here.
Councillor O'Brien.
Yes, here.
Councillor Pawley.
Here.
Councillor Purdy.
Here.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
Here.
Councillor Raw. I've not seen Councillor Raw. Oh, Councillor Raw. No, is that Councillor Rose?
That's Councillor Rose.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've not seen Councillor Raw. No. Councillor Salt.
Here.
Councillor Shirley.
Here.
Councillor Slack.
Here.
Councillor Statham.
Here.
Councillor Sutton.
Here.
Councillor Swindle.
Here.
Councillor Wayne.
Present.
And Councillor Wakeman.
Here.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason. That's helpful. I'm sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. We were with Keith answering the question. So if you'd maybe like to repeat the question that Councillor Ratcliffe gave, Keith.
I think I'm okay. I think Ash answered most of it. It was the bit that I wanted to come in on is I've had discussions with Peak Park at officer level. And one of the issues that they have, or one of the frustrations they have, is the ability to enforce, much as we would have that frustration. If the intention is to provide a deterrent in the form of signage, then technically that already exists, because the Peak National Park already have bylaws in place which prohibit the lighting of fires. So that signage could go up now that Councillor Buttle was referring to, and it can be in relation to the local open access land bylaws. I think bringing about a public spaces protection order at a layer above that is just simply replicating what already exists, in the knowledge that we still have the frustration of being unable to effectively enforce. There is another issue, and that's one of administrative boundary. Councillor Buttle was quite right in that we have relatively small areas, which it's not overly difficult to identify them, and we can then start to engage with landowners, but it's very, very limited. And there is also an issue of how you define that boundary to those who are accessing open access land.
Okay.
So it's a frustrating one.
Okay, thank you very much. I've now got Councillor Gamble, please.
All right. Hi, thank you. Well, the sign, I know that it doesn't, Keith just said they doesn't want to overly rely on signage, but I do think in the extremely good speech that Neil gave, that signage will be a big deterrent. Most of the British public are law-abiding citizens, and if they see a sign that says you can't light a barbecue, they're much less likely to light one. I mean, also in terms of cost signage as well, I think there's a few things we could look at. Like, I mean, we already put in for sponsorship on car park signage. Park signage. I mean, I'd thought, you know, there'd be people out there probably quite happily would sponsor some of the signage for us. And also, just in terms of the land as well, I believe probably if we were going to follow the Oldham sort of model, we would be talking about public land with access. So in that sense, that is quite well defined, and something like the Peak Park should be able to quite well define that for us. And I just want to say that, you know, we have a beautiful area, and we have many businesses, as Neil said, that rely on the visitors coming in. But this can come at a price when the minority don't realise that damage that leaving an unattended barbecue or fire can do. A signage isn't just a warning and a threat of enforcement. It is also partly an education process. A lot of the people that maybe come out of here have come from environments where there's a lot of signage, where they're used to the idea that if you can't do something, you're not expected to do something, there'll be a sign telling you that. And I think this could actually, you know, we could actually look at the sign itself as a form of education to let people know. They don't all have the experience and local knowledge of the countryside that we have. You know, when we go out there, we know sort of how to behave, that, you know, you don't block field gates, that kind of thing. Sometimes people don't know. And certainly signage can be a real help in that. And it's certainly, I've noticed the signage increase in Crestbrookdale quite a lot. There's a lot more signage of things like not to go in dew ponds, a lot more warning about the cattle and how to behave around cattle, that kind of thing. And I also, just on again in the officers' report thing, public consultation, I presume, is something our officers now are very well versed in and know what to do, and have done them for public space protection orders a few times. So it really should be quite an easy exercise. I don't think this is something that should be that hard to do. And I think finally, all I'd say is, if we don't do this, is there anything else in place that's going to reduce barbecue use that we can be absolutely certain will do it? I mean, if there is, then great, fine. Let's not do this. But this could be something that, and in Oldham, it seems to have been proved that it actually has worked. Just having this in place has decreased barbecue use a lot around the Oldham area.
Okay.
And again, just the last thing, really, you know, these are beautiful areas. We want these for future generations and for future people to enjoy. Let's look after them.
Okay, everyone's allowed 3 minutes in the procedural rules, please. Thank you. Keith, did you want to come back on that, I think?
Yes, please. My apologies, Councillor Gamble. I obviously wasn't clear enough. My point was that there is legislation already in place in the form of bylaws that would allow us to go down the route of putting public signage up and educating the public. That could be done through the bylaw route. We wouldn't have to put the PSPO in place in order to put signage up saying that fires are prohibited. It's already there. My issue was, my concern was the ability to then subsequently enforce. So
Okay,
apologies if I hadn't made it clear.
Thank you. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, excellent speech, Neil. It was really excellent. And I think it's not political, this isn't it? It's common sense, really. I mean, we've seen the gigantic fires, what's happening in California now, and we saw last year around Oldham and Manchester area, the fires there on Saddleworth Moor. Prevention is better than having damage, releasing all that carbon, animals, destroying animals and wildlife. We've got to take this on board, really. Costs are interesting, but I've done a little bit of research on some of what other councils are doing, and a lot of councils now, instead of losing a lot of manpower, are using zones which fly around and take photographs of people on the moors. If they've got a fire, it can zoom in on them and take photographs, and then report back to base, and then they can go and stop them, of course. But it'd be better if this was a partnership with Peak Park, because and then it'd cover all the area. And if we had a zones flying over the top, we could share the cost. They're not expensive to purchase, actually. They're only about £1,000 to purchase, but there's training of someone to operate it and so forth. So it's probably £3,000 or £4,000 really to get that organised, and that'd save an enormous lot of manpower. And it did pinpoint where the problem was. So that's just an idea what other councils are looking at. So, but coming back to Neil, it's excellent, and I shall be supporting it. It's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Purdy. Councillor Purdy. Oh gosh, is he frozen? Councillor Purdy, I think, is frozen.
Thank you, Chair.
Right.
No, it isn't political, and it is common sense, and that's where I'm coming from and where our group's coming from. Common sense.
Gary, we've got a problem with your sound. Could you want to just start again?
Can you hear me?
It's echoey. Ladies and gentlemen on YouTube, this is always the chairman's nightmare. Right. I think, are you? Try again. No, you're very willowy.
Chair, can I suggest he phones in, because his phone will probably work even if his...
Right, okay. Have we lost him completely now? I've lost my screen.
Yes, I think he's left the meeting, Chairman.
Right, okay. Can we, I think we need Councillor Purdy. Can we just adjourn for 5 minutes, please? Or is he back?
Chair,
Purdy's back, Chair.
Ah, right.
Yeah, so I've had to reboot the iPad.
Thank you. Fine, okay.
So we're coming from it from a common sense perspective and heavily laden with my police background, and that is that we have to evidence base this, and that also comes down on the ground where anyone might light a barbecue or might light a match. The enforcement officers would have to see someone actually committing this. So I think we've got a grave difficulty in the enforcement angle. when I became leader, Councillor Swabson and I looked into Derby City, who have got a civil enforcement team. And so I want to back up what Ash says. The resultant inquiries into getting our own civil enforcement team is circa 100,000. So it's something that we can't afford. I have prepared an amendment, Chair, because I want to be in the spirit of this, and we want to be in the spirit of this, and we don't want to be seen to be killjoys. But we've got to look at it from a practical perspective and ask the question why we, our authority, should take sole responsibility for this in other authorities' land. There are 9 different authorities within the Peak Park, so multiply that by 10. Why should we take the responsibility for it? So what I would look for in my amendment is an urgent multi-agency approach, as even Councillor Butler alluded to. So if I can submit my amendment, Chair.
Yeah, of course.
Note the work is already underway to officers towards a renewal date on PSPO in effect within the Derbyshire Dales, with commitments to undertake public consultation in accordance with statutory provisions. 2, urgently delegate authority to the Director of Community Environmental Services to engage with other local authorities and partners to investigate the potential and willingness to develop a multi-agency approach designed to increase education to the public with regard to this issue, and a report be brought to Community and the Environment Committee in due course to provide an update on progress. Thank you.
Okay, right, so we have an amendment tabled, okay. Councillor Tony Morley, does that find a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I will very happily second that amendment. And I've also, at some point, I applaud the sentiment behind it and congratulate Councillor Buttle. So yes, I'm seconding that amendment, but I've also got a question for Councillor Buttle at the appropriate time, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we now, James, for clarification, we now take the amendment, do we not? And we now, what might be helpful if presently we could get some words up or in the chat bar tonight, is that to know exactly what the amendment is. So, James, did you want to comment there?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm going to put the text of the amendment that I've just got down into the chat box so the members know exactly what the wording is.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Bear with me 1 second.
Thank you very much. So we'll carry on with our speakers, and of course, previous speakers who have spoken on the motion can now speak on the amendment. Okay, and you have, I think it's, is it 2 or 3 minutes? Sorry, I'll get my head around all these figures and everything, but hopefully it won't be longer than 3. Thank you. So I've got Councillor Martin Burford next, please. Councillor Martin Burford.
I'm speaking on the main motion, not the amendment, because I'm not clear where the amendment comes in the order.
Right, well, the amendment is, as per previous meetings, it's now in the chat bar. So the amendment is, so this would be, correct me if I'm wrong, James, to add to the, hold on, where have I got?
So if I can
yes,
help,
please,
Chairman.
if you could help, please.
Yeah, the wording is from Councillor Purdy's amendment to insert the wording 1, note that work is already underway by officers towards a renewal date on the PSPO in effect within the Derbyshire Dales, with commitments to undertake public consultation in accordance with statutory provisions. And 2, urgently delegate authority to the Director of Community and Environmental Services to engage with other local authorities and partners to investigate the potential and willingness to develop a multi-agency approach designed to increase education to the public. With regard to this issue, the report be brought to Community and Environment Committee in due course to provide an update on progress. And the deletion of the existing wording of the motion. So that the intent is to capture the spirit of the original wording within the new wording that's been provided.
So for clarity, so that is 2 points rather than the 7, yeah? Yeah, okay, right. Councillor Martin Perfect. So we're now on the amendments. Hopefully, I know it's complicated, but here we are. So, Councillor Martin Perfect, would you want to come back later?
I'll come back later. Yes.
Okay. So, Councillor Cruz.
Thanks, Chair. I don't think I've put my hand up so far. I'm waiting. Waiting to listen to the debate. So I'll come in later. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Councillor Allison.
Sorry, I'll come in later as well.
Okay. So that's. I'm not quite sure how to mark that down. Anyway, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think I can safely say that I've personally experienced the devastation left by wildfires more than anyone present here, and I welcome any moves to eradicate, not just mitigate, to eradicate this risk that has caused such horrendous devastation, both to vegetation, more importantly to wildlife, because it doesn't discriminate against the times when it starts. And we saw in 2018 many ground nesting birds were wiped out, and along with the insects and the whole biodiversity. So I am really keen to see anything that can minimise this risk. I feel that a PSPO isn't effective, wouldn't be effective. It wouldn't go far enough, and it would isolate Derbyshire Dales as to what they're doing, regardless of what everyone else is doing. So I would support the amendment that Councillor Purdy has put forward into the multi-agency cooperation. This is happening. This is happening a lot at the moment with liaison between Derbyshire Dales and Peak Park, other community initiatives. So we know that people can work together on this. That they consider it with the same importance. I commend your motion, Neil. When I see you next, I'll correct some of the glaring inaccuracies that you stated about peatlands, but we'll leave that for future. And I do apologise to Matt Buckler, who's just sent me a chat saying that I'm probably the second most experienced with wildfires in this committee. But yeah, I welcome this amendment, and I shall be supporting it.
Okay, thank you. I know a lot of members have put their hands up and everything. I just want to make clarity. So this is members who wish to speak on the amendment to put their hands up. So I think I've got Councillor Wakeman next.
No, I've not put my hand up, Chair. Sorry.
Okay, beg your pardon. Okay, so Councillor Pawley.
I'll wait until later. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, looks like we might be Councillor Archer.
Thank you, Chair. It sort of relates to the amendment, so I'll continue. My concern with the amendment is that this original proposal and motion is clearly to try and get some more positive action. We've had information that there are bylaws that means we can already put signage up, and there's problems with enforcement. But obviously we haven't been doing enough. I'm no expert on this. I don't pretend to be an expert on this, but from what people who do know more about it are saying, there's clearly a need for us to take more action. That hasn't been taken so far. And I think the original motion is clearly designed to try and make this a much higher priority and trying to make sure that more positive action is taken. And my concern with the amendment is that it's potentially watering that down and not therefore going to keep it as a high priority as the original motion is trying to make it. So I'm concerned it's going to try to water things down and might mean that this very important issue is put on the back burner if we accept the amendment, whereas if we go with the original motion, it will really send out a very clear message that we take this very seriously and want to take positive action to stop these devastating fires. So at the moment, I'm inclined to vote against the amendment because of that reason. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Finesse.
Just unmuting, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm very happy with the amendment. I was concerned about the motion in the first place. It's very well intended, you know, and a lot of good things about it. But the big issue is enforcement. You know, we found that at Peak Park. And, you know, Councillor Gamble talked about putting signs up. We can do that already. That's not a problem. But enforcement is the big issue. And I think that if we go ahead with this joint authority initiative, you know, so enforcement is fully discussed amongst all the authorities, we'll probably get somewhere with it. So, as I said, I'm happy to support Councillor Purdy's motion for amendment.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. Not taking anything away from Councillor Buttle's original motion. I think we all applaud his efforts with this, but I will be supporting the amendment. We need to be pragmatic with this. As Keith's told us, we've got bylaws already up. We've got a massive cost implications going forward. This has been raised to a high profile. We're having an extraordinary meeting to discuss it. And I think we do need a multi-agency approach with this. In my own ward here, volunteers from Baslow with the Peak District Neighbourhood Watch volunteers, they've been out on the moors, seeing people who brought coal, they brought wood to make fires. It's about education. They've dealt with lots of people, and when they explained to them, you know, what the problem was, they've gone home. So I agree, signage, education, we have to move forward with that way, and I will be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien. Peter.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to say broadly what I was going to say in support of the original proposal, because I think it will help demonstrate why I not feel able to support the amendment. Essentially, I think, unfortunately, talking does not stop people bringing and lighting barbecues and setting our moorlands on fire. But I do understand why some colleagues may not see this proposal as a priority, because they may not have actually witnessed the devastating effects that moorland fires have, nor noticed the exponential increase in the number of disposable barbecues coming into the district. I think if you actually talk to Halitage Fire Service or to our park rangers, or ask anyone who actually lives or works in our northern moors, you'll understand why the proposal has been brought forward for immediate action. You may ask why there's been no reference to the views of the police or the fire services. This is because they are statutory consultees. I have had some informal discussions with them, and the very fact that the proposal is before you today, I suggest, indicates some level of informal support at this stage. I do want to say something briefly about resources. As we've heard, the authority has already introduced a large number of PSPOs, so it's quite familiar with the process, and it's a standard practice. We know that the National Park Authority already has very detailed maps of the moorland areas, vulnerable moorland areas, so the task of defining an area to which a PSPO would apply has already been undertaken. As regards enforcement, yeah, of course it's an issue. You know, we'd be all naive to pretend that it wasn't, and somehow passing a resolution would stop barbecues being brought into the district. But the same issue was faced by Tameside, Oldham, Calderdale and Kirklees Council. Now, we didn't hear them saying, well, let's talk about it. We saw them taking action. But none of them felt necessary to add financial provision in their revenue budgets. They found that the very implementation of a PSPO has had a very significant increase on the number of barbecues being lit and brought in. That itself has been a major deterrent. And of course, we are very fortunate in having a variety of partner agencies like the Park Authority, the National Trust Rangers, who, with the agreement to their management, could at least be enabled and empowered to enforce. Now, some of you have said you've, as the amendment suggests, it may be better to enter into discussions with partners before embarking on legislative action. But I have to say, colleagues, this is precisely what has been happening in the national park over the past 6 months. We've been aware of the issue, and there have been innumerable discussions between all the partners, landowners, park authority, National Trust, and you've seen a number of voluntary initiatives that have been introduced, but regrettably they've had no impact on the problem which we're addressing. And I have to say, as far as bylaws are concerned, my understanding is they apply strictly to land which the National Park Authority owns, which is principally its car parks and its caravan sites, and camping sites, rather than to the wider national park area. And finally, I'd say, in support of the original proposal, that the council's already shown how it can respond positively and quickly to the coronavirus crisis, whether it's supporting Serco, Freedom Leisure, the hospitality industry and the homeless. We didn't feel the need there to engage in lengthy discussions with other partners. We recognised the urgency of the issue and we took action. This is a very different sort of emergency, but it is nevertheless an emergency. So for that reason, I would commend the original proposal to you and ask you not to support the well-intentioned amendment. Thank you.
I think Keith wanted a point of clarification on the National Park PCSOs. Did I see you?
My apologies, I shook my head, didn't I? Sorry. It was in particular reference to the bylaws, Councillor O'Brien. The National Park bylaw actually relates to access land, which means each of the areas of land to which the public have been given access by an agreement or in consequence of acquisition. I think Natural England hold a register of open access land. So the Peak Park bylaw does actually cover all of those, and adopting a signage approach through the multi-agency route would allow each of the local authorities to refer to that and have one common stance.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to say anything else? No.
No, I thought just that we could empower us. Again, Councillor, you mentioned that we could empower and enable our partners in Peak National Park to enforce. As I said very early on, I think they're in the same boat as us, that they struggle with that resource.
Right, okay, thank you. I think Councillor Sue Burford's just intimated she'd like to say something about interest.
Councillor Herbert, I've been waiting quite a long time if she's just
I know, but this is a point of interest, sorry. Is that all she wanted to?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies that I failed to declare that I'm a member of the Fire Authority. I have been informed that I can participate and vote.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councillor Hughes, you can go next. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a bit concerned that the amendment. I'd like to speak about the amendment first, and then make some other comments, and potentially just ask James McLaughlin a question. So I'm a bit concerned by the wording of the amendment doesn't enhance or even dilute the motion. It actually negates particular parts of the motion. And under the email that James McLaughlin circulated a few days ago, amendments should not negate a motion. They must be pertinent and relevant to it. I agree it's pertinent and relevant, but I believe it negates. The reason I believe it negates is because it only talks about a multi-agency approach designed to increase education to the public with regard to this issue. It doesn't talk about the issue of a public spaces protection order, or even a bylaw, or any other sort of order which prohibits the use of portable and disposable barbecues. Therefore, I think it's a negation of the original motion, and therefore it's not a valid amendment. Now, before Jason talks about, replies to that, because I'm sure he'll reply that it is, I would just like to say that I would like to see, if this amendment is carried forward, I would like to see additional words, say a multi-agency approach, because I believe that is a good thing to do, designed to increase education to the public with regard to this issue, and consider PSPOs.
Right. So is this
this issue?
So I beg your pardon. Is this an amendment to an amendment?
Yes, which we can't. Which I know we can't do. I'm just saying that if at some stage I would like to suggest that those words are included if James thinks that it is a legal.
I'll
just find out if James, can I bring you in?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so whilst the proposed amendment removes the wording of the original motion, the spirit of the original motion is kept within there. But just taking into account what you've said, Councillor Hughes, you might, Chair, wish to refer to Councillor Purdy to see whether he would be willing to incorporate the wording from Councillor Hughes within the amendment. If that was possible, we might be able to deal with both issues within this amendment rather than having a separate vote on that. So that might be a potential way forward.
Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry I didn't quite catch the wording from Councillor Hughes. David, would you be kind enough to repeat what words you want adding?
Of course, yes. I mean, what it is really to get the words considering a PCSO. So it would read, to develop a multi-agency approach designed to increase education to the public, which I think is a very good thing, with regard to this issue, and consider the introduction of a public space protection order and with regard to this issue, and a report be brought to the Community and Environment Committee. So it's really to consider the introduction of a PSPO.
Chair, I've got no problem with those words at all.
Okay,
I'm happy for them to be added to the amendment.
Is that all right with the seconder, Councillor Hobson? So it's Councillor Morley, I beg your pardon, Councillor Tony Morley. Is Councillor Tony Morley happy with those words? Well, we'll get James to put that up on the screen or in the chat bar if that's all right. Okay. Councillor Tony Morley, does that seek your approval? I've lost him. Is he frozen? Councillor Tony Morley?
He just came up as left, Chair.
Oh dear. Is Councillor Michelle Morley there? Is he back? Oh, we're not having a good one tonight, are we? I think I might need to find another seconder. I think this is Councillor Hobson. Yeah.
Councillor Bull here. I don't think it's anything in general, but all the screens keep disappearing on and off. So whether it's the actual YouTube that's making the difference with things, I'm not sure.
Right.
So Councillor Morley might come back, but if Councillor Morley doesn't, I am quite prepared to.
Well, as you're there, if with your permission, I'll take that as a second in these rather strange circumstances. Okay. Well, Councillor,
make a point on that.
Yeah. Do you want to carry on talking? Yeah, that's great.
Please, if you can, Chair. Yeah. Like we've all said, the principle of the fact of what we're trying to do is the urgency to try and stop barbecues and having fires on our open space areas. Listening to Councillor Buckle, yes, it was absolutely wonderful how he put it over, but looking into it, it's all about our car parks around. Now, according to the information that we got earlier, our current PSPOs, we have number 2, parks and open spaces. That's prohibition of fire, barbecues, and prohibition of driving or parking in park and open spaces. And then underneath it dictates it of saying, no individual shall light or maintain a fire or solvent or a barbecue of any similar nature within an area referred to in section 1, which is the PCSO and open spaces. So we've already got a PCSO in place. As regards us trying to get a PCSO in the Peak District National Park, then that's for us trying to tell others what to do. And they already have bylaws which already circumference on that. So, you know, where our amendment has come in, I don't really think that we need another consultation proposal to do a public PSPO consultation on barbecues, because it is already in a legislation that we've already got, and it is under renew in 2021. And obviously then would be the time to do that, but it's not stopping us now, because we've got that, to make the point of being able to put up signs and work collectively with others to do exactly the same thing without as much reinforcement that we'd have to do and resources to put out. Because surely putting signs up and making people more aware that there'll be a penalty upon this would be a lot better than what, you know, trying to enforce it and people, the park rangers and the likes. But like I said, you know, a lot of the places that Councillor Booker was on about was literally from our car parks and some of our areas, which are not quite on the Peak District National Park itself, which some of us are really trying to get involved with, and further afield, for that matter. So in sense, then I think
I'll see what I can do.
Our amendment is as it states. You know, work with multi-agents, and I think that's the best thing that we need to be doing, and get these signs up. We don't need to go for full consultation. We've already got a PSPO in place.
Okay, thank you. I've just heard from Michelle Morley, they've had a power cut at their home. Oh dear, so they can't hear. So hopefully, yeah.
Can I just clarify that because they've not been party to the debate, if they do return to the meeting, they'll not be able to vote on the matter.
Right, okay. Right, we'll have to try and get that over to them as we can. Okay, that was a shame because that was the second, wasn't it? Right, all these things. Okay, I've got several people, and I think I'll go to Councillor Butler next, please. Thank you, Councillor Ball.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to the amendment. Actually, I completely support the motion in the motion that we had originally. The amendment, there's various things happening. Well, nothing is happening. I was up on Stanton Moor a couple of weeks ago with Councillor Archer and our MP, and one of the things that is enforcement is really difficult. The Stanton Moor is a scheduled ancient monument. Lighting fires on it is illegal, and English Heritage have to take the enforcement action. If we brought in a PSPO on Stanton Moor, it could be the enforcement could be undertaken immediately. The police have to, and so I think that the fact that we have mechanisms in place to stop this suggests that we should do something else, because the current mechanisms that we've got to stop this are not having an impact. I think that we should be looking at the using the original motion. Thanks very much.
Unmute myself. Thank you. Councillor Martin Burford, do you want to come in now?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I think there's a bit of confusion here. I think Councillor Bull has mentioned about various car parks, which are not District Council car parks, they're Peak National Park car parks. But we have jurisdiction, obviously, over the whole of our district, but not in a planning sense. So where planning is concerned, obviously, we don't have any jurisdiction. But first of all, going back to what I was going to say originally, I'd like to congratulate Neil Butler on an excellent speech and presentation. And also, I'd like to thank Councillors Gamble and O'Brien for the statements they've made. I have obviously witnessed a devastating effect on the moorland landscape of wildfires over many years working for the Peak District National Park Authority, particularly Saddleworth and Western Moors, for instance, which have cost thousands of pounds in personnel, rangers, firefighters, etc., and equipment over several weeks in many cases. I'm also very familiar with all the car parks that Councillor Buttle mentioned. In fact, I was probably responsible for providing most of them, so I may be responsible for or guilty in encouraging people to use them and then like barbecues close to them. But of course, that's why I support what's just been said about enforcement. If we had a PSPO, then obviously we'd be able to demand or ask or request the police to enforce that PSPO within the areas that we cover as an authority. So the question seems to be, how will it be enforced? Obviously, as I've said, the police will be involved, but it's no different in a way to the many 20-mile-an-hour speed limits that we ask for currently in Matlock, for instance, and other places, no doubt, where the county council and police tell us, oh, we can't enforce that, but we've still got one in place in the centre of Matlock, for instance. It can't be enforced, no, because there aren't police on every street corner, there aren't speed guns on every area of highway either. But the regulation's there, and people largely abide generally by it. And it's the same with dog fouling regulations, for instance, the orders we have for that. That can't be enforced. We have constant complaints from people about dog fouling. We can't send a district council officer to apprehend these people who allow their dogs to foul at all. And it's the same with barbecues and lighting fires. It's just a deterrent factor, a deterrent effect, which is crucial, and it works to some extent through publicity and, as Councillor Hughes said, education, which is very important, and through the social media we can get all sorts of messages across these days. So I'd like to support the original motion and urge you not to accept the amendment at this stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cruz.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to weigh up the differences between the original motion and the amendment.
Okay, can I ask Jim to put it up on the screen?
And the tweak to the amendment as well.
Yeah, he's going to put that up on the screen while
really
you talk.
In clarity for that. So I fully support the original motion, and I'm a co-signatory to the meeting. I think Councillor Buttle did do an excellent job presenting the motion for consideration. The moorlands in our Peak District are a national treasure, fantastic carbon sink. Protecting them supports our climate emergency, protects our residents and our local businesses, and also supports our corporate plan. Consultation and enforcement might be a concern. However, the cost of no action will greatly outweigh any short-term costs. My understanding is that tonight we're just agreeing to kick off the consultation. It's not a final decision to enact the PSPO. I think all councillors should want to hear what our stakeholders think we should do on this important topic. I encourage all colleagues to support a positive motion. I think the original motion is a strong motion. I am open to an amendment, but it has to have a path, and I'm going to talk in practical terms, where we turn up in adjacent to moorland, there are actually signs which contain a fixed penalty on them as a way to deter people from carrying barbecues onto moorland sites. And what I can't understand is whether the amendment with the tweak will lead us to the potential of signs that could be put up with a fixed penalty on. I do not think that the bylaws will allow us to assign a fixed penalty. So I think that's a distraction in the debate, but I'm willing to be corrected on that.
Can I ask
clarity on that, please? Thank you.
Okay, Keith, have you got clarity on that one?
Well, I do have a copy of the bylaw, and I'm not sure. Oh, penalty, here we go. Excuse me. Any person offending against these bylaws should be liable on summary conviction of a fine not exceeding level 2 on the standard scale. So, from a legal point of view, does anybody know what level 2, a level 2 fine is? That I'm assuming that could go on signage as a bylaw.
Level 2 being a quantum, presumably.
Yeah.
Does level 2 have a pound notes on it, please, Keith?
I assume that they say level 2, and again, I need legal help here, but I'm assuming they say a level not exceeding level 2 on the standard scale means that the standard scale can be adjusted year on year. Or
I think that's about 500 quid.
Right.
Really?
I was between 250 and 500, and I was just about to check. I think it's about 500.
Thank you for our legal advice. Okay, thank you.
If I may, the reason that you probably don't put the amount on the sign is because if you put the amount on and then 6 months down the line they change that £500 to £1,000, you've got to take your signage down and renew it all and put the new amount on. So level 2 is an easy way to do it. But you're right, the financial hit is better to be shown. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much for the clarification. That's helped a lot. Thank you. Okay,
thank you. So that would be a fine. So, Councillor, where am I? Sorry, this is getting a bit confusing. Councillor Allison, would you like to contribute now?
Yeah, before Councillor Allison comes in, I'm noticing that a lot of members are having technical difficulties.
I don't know if there's a power cut in Derbyshire area or...
Yeah, there is a power cut in Deliberation. We've got fire engines and all sorts down here. Luckily, my house hasn't been affected by it for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah, so can I carry on? Is that all right?
I think carry on. I think I might have to take a decision on this at the whole meeting in a minute, shortly.
Okay, I think it's already been touched on by Councillor Burford, but I'd just like to respond to the argument that a PSPO is too costly to enforce. We have thousands of laws in this country that aren't enforced. We have a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit coming into this village. It's a sign, it tells you to slow down to 30 miles an hour. Some people observe it, some people don't, but and 99% of the time it's not ever enforced, but it can be. And if I break that speed limit and I get caught, I can be fined. So I really don't accept the argument that there is an inability, that we should not approve this because there's an inability to enforce it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we'll carry on. Councillor Pauly, please.
Are we still on the amendment, Chair?
Yes, yes, we're still on the...
I haven't got anything to say on the amendment. I wanted to say
so did you see...
That's what I said to you before when I said I'd wait.
I beg your pardon. Okay, right.
That's okay. You're having a devil of a time.
You're telling me. Councillor Salt, please.
Thank you, Chair. On the amendment, I am able to support it because for me, the confusion has been, since it was raised by Keith, that we have bylaws in place which have teeth and with signage could quite easily do exactly what the PSPO wants to do. Speaking practically, I just figured that would probably be the quickest way of getting some teeth onto the ban that we're looking for and getting the protection in place. Again, we can talk about enforcement, but everybody knows the problems with it. But nevertheless, the signage of the bylaws, surely if there's a statutory process in place already, would have been the quickest win for me. I wasn't aware they were enforced, so I like the amendment because the multi-agency approach will allow probably that to be implemented much quicker. And within the wording that I've looked at, I'm happy there's scope for discussion about that, as well as the PSPO as an option to take it forward. So I will be able to support the amendment. But I would also like to add that I thought Councillor Buttle's presentation to begin with was quality, absolute quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bright.
Thank you, Chair. I have to be honest, I'm struggling with the complexity of the original motion. Whilst it's very, very well-meaning, and I am well with Councillor Buttle in the Climate Change Working Group, I am a bit concerned that we have no way to enforce this. We have no budget to enforce this. I'm a strong believer that PSPOs need to be enforced or they become meaningless. People just don't seem to care about them. So I would be happy to support the motion put forward by Councillor Purdy, but I do have one question, and this is coming from the point of a keen hiker and walker. Would for example a hitchhiking party that had been caught out on a hill, for example, who needed to heat some water with a stove, be caught up and prosecuted under this, or could be caught up and prosecuted under this PSPO? Because we have lots of scouts, guides, people walking around on the peaks And it's just a genuine question as to how we discern between people who are using these things responsibly and people who aren't. So it's just really a question to see, and I know the officers might not have an answer for this, but it's just to see if they have any understanding of this from other areas that might have brought these in.
I think, is that Keith looking at me?
Yeah, go on. I'll have a go.
Thank you.
First of all, can I make a point of clarity from earlier? We don't have a bylaw. What I actually said was the Peak National Park have a bylaw, and that bylaw covers all of the joint authorities in the Peak Park. So an approach using that means that we would all use the same type of promotion, same type of signage. So that's just a clarification on what was said earlier. This particular one, how would we allow individual groups and organisations to stage barbecue? It would be by consent. I don't know how practical that would be, but through a public spaces protection order, they would need to have authority to do that. Much as if an event takes place on Hawleys Park in Matlock or Bakewell Recreation Ground, we can give consent for an organised barbecue.
Okay, thank you. I think, ladies and gentlemen, there's been people that I'd like to check on some of our members, especially with fire engines involved. I think, could we just take 10 minutes and resume at 7:30, please? I think this is a sensible time perhaps to adjourn and just find out that we're all okay. Okay, 10 minutes and return at 7:30, please. Thank you. I'll just wait for the, I've got, right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for that. Unfortunately, we've lost several councillors, but I think we must carry on, and hopefully we won't lose anyone else. Thank you. We are on the amendment, which we need just a couple more people to come back.
Chair?
Yeah.
Can I suggest we postpone the meeting?
No, what, are you running out of battery as well?
Yeah, battery and internet.
I'd like to continue if we can, please. We haven't heard anyone. Welcome back, everyone. And we are on the amendment to the motion, which had those 2 points that Councillor Purdy put up, which was seconded. Well, we've lost Sue Ball, so we need another seconder now, haven't we? So go to Councillor Shirley. Thank you, Councillor Waitman. Thank you, thank you. And which also had the additional words that Councillor Hughes put in. Thank you very much. And we've had Councillor Salt, Councillor Lees.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I fully support Councillor Purdy's amendment, and unless it has a multi-agency approach, I can't see how it's going to work. As you know, I've spent 30 years fighting these fires on these moors, months on end at a time, you know, and it's not just about the barbecues. I think it needs a lot of educational literature put in about these multi-agencies regarding a lot of the fires was classed as arson, a lot due to bottles, and also, as Councillor Purdy says, that, you know, when it comes to prosecuting or whatever, the people that had these barbecues have been long gone. So it's going to be very, very difficult to police. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to ask Councillor Sue Burford if she wanted to speak on the amendment. No?
Sorry, no.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, because I had you on the list, etc. So I don't think I've got anybody else to speak on the amendment, unless
Chair.
Councillor Shirley, I beg your pardon. Okay, right. Okay, it's one of those. Councillor Shirley. Then I've got. All right, I've got 2 or 3 now. Shirley, please. Councillor Shirley.
Are you sorry?
Yeah. Did you want to speak now?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Sorry.
Sorry. I would like to speak in support of the amendment. I think it offers a good way forward. We have to tie everyone into a solution, and I think the amendment provides for that. It doesn't shut off the possibility of having a public space protection order, if that is thought necessary. But what we do need is some clarity, because I think the discussions that's gone on tonight, all we seem to be doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is overlaying existing regulation with another regulation. So I don't think that offers anything more. But what is offered more is by approaching things in a more coordinated way with all the agencies involved. So I will be supporting the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Wayne.
Thank you, Chair. The lights are still on in Matlock for your information.
Great.
Obviously, it's a bit complicated because I want to clarify something about the amendment first. Can it be clarified whether the amended motion still includes the initial paragraph of the original motion that states that this council notes the significant recent increase and that paragraph that follows, because what Mr. McLaughlin put on was just 2 lines. I just need to clarify that paragraph.
You need to put on this at 4. Right, James.
Above, yes,
Chairman,
above 1. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, perhaps I can help, Chairman. Yeah, the text in the motion that's set out on the agenda, which says that this council notes, remains. That's not part of your formal resolution as such. It is you're noting that for information as part of the information informing your resolution. So that remains within the proposal.
So that full paragraph as it stands will be there. That's fine, Mr. McLaughlin. Can I just add a bit further, please, Chair? Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, I've listened with interest. Obviously, the motion and then the amendment. I'm a little bit concerned. We have got a duty as an elected body to protect our communities and those that follow. Whatever we choose to do tonight must be actioned urgently and not left to fester in excessive debate and deliberation. And that's where I feel we may be going. I'm just a little bit concerned also why we're so wrapped up about enforcement and the ability to enforce. It's not obviously impacted upon the council on the 70+ PSPO areas that they've already got. And they've not had the ability to enforce for the 18 months that these have been active. I do believe that signage will reduce the instance of, these barbecues. And I'd just like to ask Mr. Postlethwaite a question. We all seem to be thinking that there is law in place, but do these bylaws of the Peak Park cover barbecues? All I've heard him mention is fires. Now, once you get into the intricacies of law, it's got to be definitive. Does it cover barbecues, please?
My understanding is it covers fires, and that should include barbecues.
Should.
One moment. I'm not an expert on this at all. I simply have what is on the website, Councillor.
I appreciate
no person shall, on access land, intentionally, carelessly, or negligently light a fire or place or throw or let fall a lighted match. So lighting a barbecue is lighting a fire.
And that's your definitive on law?
That's how I would interpret it.
I would suggest, the Chair, and thank you, Keith, I would suggest that it isn't definitive enough and it should specify barbecue, because this is what the cause of most of this issue is. It's barbecues, not carelessly discarded matches, although they do cause fires. I've been to a number of these. I'm not a firefighter, but I've been to a number in my former job. So, and also, finally, Councillor Purdy's assertion, why should we take the lead? I feel that we as a council should take the initiative and become, sorry the pun, the beacon of best practice and not a flickering flame of inaction. Really, we should, if we have a possibility to do this, let other people follow us and not let us be the followers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Well, like Councillor Lees, I spent over 30 years fighting these moor fires. And again, I think what we need, signage is good, but I think what we need really to educate the public coming out of the cities and the towns to respect our countryside and take the rubbish home with them, because I would believe that there's as many glass and bottles over the years has created just as many fires as barbecues. So tonight, I will go the multi-agency approach. So I think reinforcement is all very well, but I think it's going to be very, very difficult to carry out. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and Councillor Buttle. Seems a long time ago since you spoke. Councillor Buttle.
Hi there, yeah. I can't remember what it was I was going to comment on. Oh, yes.
The amendment, please.
The amendment got this stuff about officers are already working towards a renewal date on our PSPOs. Well, is there any way, like I'm kind of accepting that we're probably not going to win this at the moment, and the lead party will stop us going. So is there any way of getting the Stanton Moor Ancient Monument Protection into the PSPOs that are being currently designed by our officers? And if there is, fantastic. And that's kind of where I got to with this, because, you know, it just feels a little bit on edge at the moment, and I don't think we're really going to make progress, but I would like to make some real progress that actually makes a difference. And I'd also like to see some nice big signs. I know they're a bit of a menace and nobody likes signs, but I want some more. I want more than this. But there we go. That's where I've got to.
Thank you very much. Ash, I think Ash wanted to say something.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was just to touch on the point that Councillor Wayne raised in terms of whether it explicitly states that it is for barbecues. I mean, my interpretation would be similar to Keith's, but, you know, I'll hold my hand up. I'm not an expert in this field. But just to give members some context in terms of number of fires or incidents from the Peak Park fire reports. In the last year, there were 52 recorded near misses, as they're called, in terms of instances of fire. Of those 52, 16 were barbecue related. So I think that we do need to consider the wider aspects of what could cause fire, not just a barbecue. And also in terms of the number of actions taken, there were 16 instances that required action. And on the list that we've been provided, none of them state or have a barbecue recorded next to them. What I would say on that is not all the instances actually state what they were. There are quite a number that do, and in the main, it's campfires that have caused the problem. So I'm not saying that there wasn't barbecue, there just isn't a barbecue recorded on the list of 16 that required action. Also, just as a point, really for members, why I stressed early on, and I know that Keith has as well, why do we keep mentioning enforcement? And that is simply to be transparent with members, because it is a concern. I don't want members to be under the illusion that we can enforce the PSPOs, because the reality of the situation is we probably cannot. And that's not to take away some of the points that some members have made. And I think Councillor Allison made a really good point that we do have laws across the country that we don't enforce. I just want to be upfront with members to show that that is the situation, so you know what you're debating. Thank you, Chair, for that opportunity.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Pauly, I think.
I was just chatting you to see if I could go now. Yes, I'll talk about what I was going to talk about anyway, because I think on the whole, I would support the amended amendment because it seems a fairly decent way to go. But what we haven't talked about is practicalities. People go out there and, as has been said, they don't go very far from car parking spaces before they light up. Is there any way we could, without being detrimental to the look of the place, provide safe barbecue areas so that people can enjoy themselves, but enjoy themselves without setting light to the countryside? I just wondered if that's anybody can answer on that one.
I'll go to Ash again.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's an interesting point. I don't have a definitive answer for now, because I don't know what would be required to install a permanent barbecue position. But I think it's something that we could look at, certainly.
Okay, right. And the last speaker is me as a ward member for Dovedale, which has also had these problems. Obviously it's not moorland, but we've had plenty of visitors during COVID-19. We've had plenty of people who haven't really been expecting the rules of the countryside. And here in the ward, I've been talking a lot with, especially in Dovedale, the National Trust, the Parish Council, Staffordshire, moorlands as well, and already certainly in Dovedale on both sides of the river, because obviously Derbyshire Dales is only on our Derbyshire side. We've obviously had the problem with traffic like we've had all over the area as well. We are already engaging in multi-agency educational plans, especially with the lead member, so the lead agency being the National Trust, because obviously, preserving Dovedale and its beautiful caves is so important, not just to the charity, but also to the local residents and the visitors that we get around here. And I can certainly endorse that we are here doing as much as we possibly can to prevent this. And to me, it's as you know, I'm passionate about the countryside. I'm passionate about our Derbyshire Dales. I'm passionate about the national park. But we've got to try and educate all the visitors, which obviously we rely on, but also we've got to make sure that they respect where they're coming to. So it's there, as Neil said at the beginning of his speech, for the next generation. Thank you very much. We'll move to the vote on the amendment, please. Can I ask Jason?
Chair, can I just come back with a comment before you go to the vote? I know
sorry, did you not talk, Councillor Slack?
Very early before the amendment came in, yeah.
Oh, right, okay, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry.
A minute.
Tonight. Yeah, of course.
Tonight again, this amendment coming. We talk about being together as one council and doing things together, the officers and all of us. Why couldn't this been discussed earlier? Councillor Purdy and Neil and officers, why couldn't they got together and discuss this before tonight? So we could have come with a policy which we could have all been united on it, really. I think it's sowing division again between us, this is coming with these things at this late stage. So in future, I think we should have more discussions, really, before we got to this.
Right. Your point is well made, Councillor Slack.
Thank you.
I think we move to the vote, and I'd like to ask Jason to do the vote. So we'll vote just for clarity. I think if Jim, could we put the two notes? So you've got the paragraph notes a significant recent increase in the use of disposable barbecues in the open countryside in the district, and the number of wildfires that have had a devastating, long-lasting, deleterious impact on the ecology and biodiversity of our precious national landscapes. And these 2 points, this is what we're voting for or against. If you could be voting now, please, with Jason.
Yeah, just before we move to the vote,
James,
if any member has not been present throughout the entirety of the debate on this amendment, they should not be voting. So when Jason invites you to vote, if you could indicate if you weren't present, we'll record that as not participating in the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. If, as I call out members' names, if you could indicate whether you're for or against, and as James just said, if you can't vote, I'll record that as well. Councillor Allison.
I was present. Can we not abstain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I abstain.
I think Councillor Archer has left. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. Councillor Atkin.
For the amendment.
Councillor Bright.
For the amendment.
Councillor Buckler.
Abstain.
Councillor Bull.
I had to leave the meeting due to difficulties with the system.
Okay. Councillor Martin Burfoot.
Abstain.
Councillor Sue Burfoot.
Abstain.
Councillor Buttle.
A very painful abstention.
Councillor Chapman.
For the amendment.
Councillor Cruz.
I'm going to assume positive intentions and I'm going to go for the amendment.
Councillor Donnelly.
For the amendment.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
For.
Councillor Froggatt.
For.
Councillor Finesse.
For.
Councillor Gamble.
Abstain.
Councillor Hobson.
For the amendment.
Councillor Hughes.
For the amendment.
Councillor Lees.
For.
Councillor Tony Morley and Michelle Morley have left.
They are absent now, yeah.
Okay. Councillor O'Brien.
Abstain.
Councillor Pawley.
For.
Councillor Purdy.
For.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
For.
Councillor Rose.
I think he's left the meeting.
Okay. Councillor Stolt.
Hang on, I haven't left the meeting.
Rose,
Oh, yes.
Yes. For. Yes.
Yes, for.
Councillor Stolt.
For.
Councillor Shirley.
For.
Councillor Slack.
For.
Councillor Statham.
For.
Councillor Sutton.
For.
Councillor Swindle.
For.
Councillor Wayne.
For.
And Councillor Wakeman. Councillor Wakeman. Is he gone?
You may have lost him. His internet
Right.
connection is poor.
So I make that 22 for, none against and 7 abstentions.
Okay, so the amendment is carried. We then go back to the substantive motion. Would anyone like to speak on the substantive motion? I have no one to speak on the substantive motion.
I'm trying to put my hand up.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, it's difficult.
Sorry.
Councillor Gamble, of course.
Sorry, could I ask a question actually, legal question, just so I'm clear in my mind what we're looking at, the difference between a bylaw and a PCS, sorry, a public space protection order. Because when I look online, a bylaw is described as a measure of last resort. It also says it goes through a magistrate's court. So presumably these definitions, where we're now accepting that Keith and Ash are legal experts and know the definition of fine, that will be tested in a magistrate court compared to a public space protection order, which will be obviously on the spot fine. I know again, I mean, as Jackie Ellison, I will absolutely go with that. Our criminal law system is based on the idea that most people are law abiding and that if something exists that they don't do something. But could I have a clarification, please, or if that's the case, that a bylaw would have to go through magistrate's court?
Certainly, through you, Chair.
Lee.
They're both criminal offences. The only difference is that the PSPO, you can elect, like a speeding fine, to pay a fixed penalty rather than going to court. If you then refuse to pay the fine, then you face prosecution.
Okay, thank you very much.
And the bylaw, please.
Sorry, yes, the bylaw is the same. That's a straight prosecution. There'll be no fixed penalty on that one, unless the relevant legislation that made the bylaw allowed that. But I don't know of any off the top of my head that allows for a fixed penalty. So you would just straight prosecute.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got no one on my list to speak. So I think.
Yes, hello. Yes, I had my hand up, please.
Oh dear. So I'm not seeing. For some reason I can't see any hands. Peter O'Brien, please.
Yeah, just wanted to make three brief points. First, I do think it's very depressing when I hear members, colleagues saying that they don't think this is an issue which the district council is taking a lead on. I'm not going to elaborate on that, but I do think that that is a really depressing comment to hear from colleagues. Secondly, we just heard that on enforcement that bylaws can only be enforced through the magistrate's court, and they can only be enforced by the authority which placed them, which is the National Park Authority. If anyone thinks that the National Park Authority are going to go around taking people to the magistrate's court to enforce bylaws, then I suggest they've got another thing coming. But thirdly, on a more positive note, and I'm not going to waste time with an amendment here, but if we are to show commitment to this issue, there is a formal partnership meeting which one or two members may be aware of, but I doubt if many are. There is a formal partnership in the National Park which is called the Peak Summit. This meets twice a year and it is convened by the Derbyshire Constabulary, and this includes all landowners, major landowners, and all the statutory authorities and partner organisations. And I have it on good authority from speaking with the Police and Crime Commissioner in Derbyshire that would be an ideal group to take this sort of proposal to. So I said, I'm not making a formal amendment, but I would suggest that if we are genuinely serious about taking this forward as in a partnership method, then we do utilise the Peak Summit as a mechanism to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Pauly.
Yes, Chair, sorry about this, but I've got terribly muddled now. Could you tell me, we're about to vote, we've just voted on the amendment, which I thought replaced numbers 1 to 7, the initial
the new
substantive.
numbers 1 and 2, yeah.
Just numbers 1 and 2?
Yeah, so under the laws, under the procedure, we have to vote on the original the substantive motion.
So we're now voting on the whole lot, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, on in addition to those 2 on the amendment, yes?
No, we've approved the amendment. We now vote on the substantive motion, which is everything in point 4.
In point 4, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you. Right, I think we now go to the vote, please. Jason. So this is for the substantive motion that Neil so elegantly and eloquently introduced 2 hours ago.
Chairman, Councillor Allison.
For.
Councillor Atkin.
Against.
There we go.
Councillor Bright.
Against.
Councillor Buckler.
For.
Councillor Bull.
Against.
Sorry, I don't.
I sought clarification with James to state that I can vote on this motion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, can I just be clear that all members understand what we're voting on in terms of the substantive motion?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
So the substantive motion that you're voting on, you just amended the motion that was printed by removing the words on the motion that was printed on your agenda and inserting the words that were shown on the screen. So Councillor Purdy's amendment, incorporating Councillor Hughes's variation to the amendment. So those are the 2 you're voting on. There is nothing on the agenda that you are actually voting on presently. So it is that the substantive motion is what you've just agreed by way of the amendment.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
Can I suggest we start the vote again?
Sorry.
I was going to, because of section 6.
Councillor Pauly, I'm sorry. I've got that wrong. I beg your apologies. It's quite a difficult night. We are voting for the substantive motive that has now been agreed by the amendment, which is the first paragraph in Neil's original thing that this council knows it's a significant recent increase, plus the 2 points from the amended amendment between Councillors Purdy and Hughes. I beg your pardon. Can we start this again?
Councillor Allison.
Abstain.
Councillor Atkin.
For.
Councillor Bright.
For.
Councillor Buckler.
For.
Councillor Bull.
For.
Councillor Martin Burfoot.
For.
Councillor Sue Burfoot.
For.
Councillor Buttle.
4.
Councillor Chapman,
4.
Councillor Cruz,
4.
Councillor Donnelly,
4.
Councillor Fitzherbert,
4.
Councillor Froggatt,
4.
Councillor Furness,
4.
Councillor Gamble,
Abstain.
Councillor Hobson,
4.
Councillor Hughes,
4.
Councillor Lees,
4.
Councillor O'Brien,
4.
Councillor Pawley,
4.
Councillor Purdy,
4.
Councillor Ratcliffe,
4.
Councillor Raw, no, sorry, Councillor Rose,
Councillor Rose. Move on.
right. I heard
Chair,
the
it's
four
just
there.
indicated 4.
Yep. Councillor Salt,
4.
Councillor Shirley,
4.
Councillor Slack,
4.
Councillor Statham,
4.
Councillor Sutton,
4.
Councillor Swindle,
4.
Councillor Wayne,
4.
and is Councillor Wakeman still not with us?
He's still not there.
Yes, okay.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, that vote is then carried. With your forbearance at number 5, I will propose the sealing of documents. Does that find a seconder?
Second,
Councillor
Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Atkin. Can we have just a vote of hands on that, please, ladies and gentlemen? I think that's unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your forbearance tonight. We've lost some people, we've gained some people, and I'm very sorry for my errors in the debate, but thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you next time. Okay, good night, everyone.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.